let's get into this, right?
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, man.
All right, cool.
Cool.
All right. So let me see. Okay. Ready?
Yeah, man.
In 3, 2, 1, go. All right. Welcome to another episode of Unlearn the Bull. It's been a long time, man. Today in the studio, which is not even my studio, your hotel. Your hotel room, not my studio.
Right. Right.
I have the man himself, man. We call him Mr. Albert. Yeah, man.
Sugar.
Yeah, man. I don't have to welcome you anymore, bro. Like, you are supposed to be welcoming me. Because now it's like... But yeah, man.
Greetings, Famba. Greetings to all of you around the world. And of course to you, Mr. Oliver. Thank you for having me on this show. Daja House.
All right, so let's get straight into our show. Yeah, man. Wagwan.
But there upon the goalie side, I look upon you with the better one, Famba. What you doing?
That's deep, man. I can't respond to that, bro.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Those of you from the Caribbean know I just said a whole lot of nothing.
All right, cool.
But yeah, man.
Yeah, man. It's good to have you. You know, it's always a good time, whether we are recording or we are not. Your bank of wisdom is amazing. So yeah, let's get into it. Today, you have a topic for us, bro. You picked this one.
I did.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Oliver. I really appreciate it. To all the listeners like myself out there who haven't heard from you in a while, I want to say thank you for having us. Thank you for coming back after a 2-month or 3-month hiatus. You know, I'm not going to butter you up too much, but I appreciate it because we all missed you, and I am honored to be back on what appears to be a new season or a new reveal.
Definitely.
So, thank you.
Yep. You're welcome, man. Thanks to you. If it wasn't for you, maybe I wouldn't have grabbed the mic again, but you know, I've been handling a few things, you know, other sources of income. So yeah, but I'm glad to be back. I missed it, and I think we're going to have a good show today.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. So we're going to keep this nice and sweet, guys. We're not going to have it as too much of an extensive show, but what we intend to discuss today is, or are really 3 big terms: information, misinformation, and disinformation. And that will be specifically within the context of the COVID-19 coronavirus. And there are lots of offshoots. There are lots of places that we can go with this conversation. So we're going to try to keep some guardrails on it.
Yep.
I wish we had the option, and I think hopefully we will, the option of having like callers call in from places to really like toss ideas with us. And maybe we had like an actual expert on each of the topics that we discuss as well. But at the same time, we're growing, and like I said, I'm so happy to be here, a part of the team.
Yep.
You know, so I'm really, really excited about this. But I think this is a good follow-up or follow-through from the truth conversation that we had some time ago. And today what I want to do is go ahead and delve into information, misinformation, and disinformation.
Awesome.
So, yeah, first off, I'll go ahead and define. I'll do the boring stuff first, like an academic.
Yeah, I was about to ask you to do that.
Yeah. So usually I ask you that, but I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in because of the pace today.
Yep.
what is information? Within the English language, according to dictionary.com, information, at least the first definition provided, is facts provided or learned about something or someone.
That's information, right?
That's the term information. Correct.
Simple and straight to the point.
Simple, straight to the point, no fluff. Now, it gets a bit trickier when we delve into the following terms: disinformation and misinformation. So disinformation is more about false information. And this is information that is intended to mislead those on the other end. And misinformation is a bit trickier in that it describes the person who was being informed to. So if I give you disinformation, you are therefore misinformed. Cool. And I know it's a bit tricky, but it's weird. That's where some of the English language stuff is tricky.
So is it because of the way I took it, or is it because of the way you said it? Is it because of what you delivered to me, or is it because of how I received the information? How does it become misinformation?
That's a very good question. I wasn't expecting that. That's an excellent question. I would say it's perhaps both, but I would say it's how the information came across to you. So if you have false information, then therefore you are misinformed. However, if your perception of the truth is not so, then you could also be misinformed, or you could also be oblivious or ignorant to the truth of a given situation, right? So we can be a bit more specific instead of speaking in the air, if that's okay. But did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, I was just trying to think, like, for example, right? Let's say you tell me something right now, and then I take what you said, and then I go and tell the next person, right? But of course, I'm not going to take when you pass information, it gets lost along the way, right?
Right.
And then when it gets to the last person, maybe it's not going to be what you intended to communicate. So are we going to say that's part of misinformation?
Yeah, that's a very good question as well. I would say, as it relates to that example you just provided, which we in America or Jamaica ironically call Chinese telephone.
Yeah.
And for those who are of Asian descent or Chinese, please don't take offense. That's where things get very tricky, Oliver. And I'm just thinking of all that in neuroscientific.
But what about in your opinion? Like, in your opinion, what do you think? In my opinion, I would think maybe I might be wrong.
Sure.
But I think when someone is, we say information,
misinformation and disinformation.
Yeah, I mean the disinformation, like when you receive it from someone, the thing is you don't know whether it's true or false, right? But you're taking it, assuming that they're telling you the truth, right?
Right.
And then you take it. And then now you take the same information which is wrong, and then you pass it to someone, assuming that it's those are facts, right? And then now you're misinforming that person. It's not like the intention was to, give them the wrong facts, but you're using the wrong facts that you got from someone else, and now
gotcha.
That's missing.
I understand. Yeah, so you actually helped to further define the term, but we're going to take a few steps back in a moment to gain some to gain some just broad perspective on information as a whole. But yes, disinformation has the intent, a deliberate intent, to provide disinformation or to misinform someone.
Yeah.
And in the game of Chinese telephone, at times that's not the intent, but it still is the result. Where people are misinformed. So I think disinformation is more about intent. And misinformation is just really about the result of what happened to those on the receiving end. But that's an excellent example, and we can step back quite a bit here. So we discussed the term truth, and largely the term truth is undefined. But for those of us who are going to use a working definition, truth is the term used to describe that which is. It is neither objective nor subjective. It just is. It's a very difficult term to describe because honestly, across millennia, we haven't defined the term, but that's truth. Then we also discussed opinion. We discussed perception. We discussed facts as well, and distinguished facts from truth. A fact is a measurement of truth and not necessarily the truth or the entire truth.
It's what we know.
It's what we know. There's also proof versus evidence in a legal sense, where proof is something that's irrefutable, whereas evidence is like a measurement of a collection of proof. So things get very nuanced here. But why am I mentioning all this? Why are we discussing all this? And again, this is important. So if there's no truth, then anything goes.
Exactly.
And it is, to me, an important conversation to have so that we can at least answer this question in any given matter. And that question is, what? So before you can answer why and how and so on in a given conversation, especially about COVID-19, you need to answer what. And honestly, that's been the most challenging question to answer nowadays, let alone to even ask. So with this predicate in mind, for those of you who were able to have listened to that episode, my name is Albert. I have a background in neuropsychology that I'm still pursuing, hopefully at master's and the doctoral level. Oliver invites me all the time to pick apart some brain stuff, but also to get apart some political stuff as well, and we always delve off. So for me, when we look at this stuff, we have to look at the real big picture, the macro picture, which is you have an individual as a person, and then you have truth. Okay. What separates an individual from accessing the truth? And on a very basic level, that thing in between Oliver, or a person, and the truth, capital T, is media.
Of course.
And when I say media, I'm not using the term media loosely. I'm using it carefully to mean mediums, misuse of mediums, but ways of communication. I teach the fine arts at a high school, so when I say medium, I literally mean things that can be used to express what you're trying to say in the artwork. A pencil, a pen, a canvas, a camera. These are bits of media.
Even what we're doing now.
Speaking on a microphone and technology, absolutely. These are aspects of media. Now, when they say mainstream media, what they, meaning the general collective public, when they say mainstream media, at least in the States and in certain countries, they mean the press, and they mean newspapers, and then they mean cable news and regular news outlets. But nowadays we have social media, and now we have other forms of media that are happening as we speak. So all this to say, media describes all of that. When I say media, I just want to have a disclaimer. I don't mean to sound like an anti-Semite, because at work I was using this term and someone accused me of using a right-wing talking point and for sounding like an anti-Semite, to suggest that I think the Jews are behind the media, and so if I don't trust the media, it's because I don't trust Jews, and therefore I am anti-Semitic.
God.
See, yeah, it fuck. So anyways,
you know what you should have told them? Let me tell you what you should have told them.
Do me a favor, please. Get out of here. Get out of here, man. Shit, I'm saying.
Yeah. You should have told him that. Oh, you should have told him.
Are you dumb? Stupid or dumb? Huh?
Exactly. Yo, it's crazy, bro.
My head hurts sometimes when I think about that. But these are good people. But, you know, when you have these deep conversations about information and truth and stuff, a lot is revealed. And here we are. So anyways, I digress.
Mm-hmm.
What's between Oliver, or an individual, and truth? That's the media, or media.
Mm-hmm.
And today, at least in America, or in many spaces like I could probably lump some South Africa in there.
Mm-hmm.
There is a divide with media and how one gets information. So you either get a set of facts that lean to the left or a set of facts that lean to the right politically on a given topic. Mm-hmm. And now it's kind of descended to the point where you only get opinions of something before you get the actual facts of what that thing is about. So let's say a story happened. You're going to get a news reporter's opinion on that story as opposed to the actual story. And we discussed this already about the 9 o'clock, 7 o'clock news, just reporting the news. And now it's
like campaigning for a political party.
Exactly. You're getting persuaded. Yeah. So the next conversation, or the next word to define, would be knowledge. And on a basic level, knowledge is a term used to describe how certain one is of something. So to know something is to be very certain of that thing.
Be very sure, yeah.
And in my biased opinion, no one knows anything. But it's not that something can't be known. I just think that our senses, our five senses, are limiting. Mm-hmm. And so to know truth, for example, in totality is a big ask. You put a bunch of people in a small room with a big elephant. For one person to identify the entire elephant, or to know that the entire room is filled with an elephant, is a big ask.
Yeah.
And that's the similar analogy with truth. So I empathize when it comes on to big topics like the COVID-19 and vaccinations and masks and other things, because we have a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, of course.
We have a lot of opinions, and varied opinions of, well, does the COVID-19 even exist? Mm-hmm. Why should I protect myself from it? Why should I wear a mask? And it brings up a lot of kind of worms. How does a government of a democratic republic treat its citizens? How do they address this? How do they address public health while not infringing on the rights or the liberties of its people? And we're speaking only about like functioning democracies, as we may call them. We're not speaking about other types of government. So it gets extremely complex.
Yeah, of course.
And that's why I have to start on such an elementary level first about truth and information before we delve into anything further. But that's what I wanted to unpack with you today, Oliver, for some time about, maybe you could help me understand from your perspective. I know you haven't been back home in a while. We've been for a minute. Just over a year, I suspect.
I'm going to bleep that. No one is supposed to know where I am.
Oh, so we've been bleep for a minute, right? But the point is, not to disclose where this young man is, but I wanted to know what you make of the situation in South Africa with the information that you have. What do you make of it? And I also wanted to ask a secondary question. I know it's a lot to lump in, but what's your take on vaccines, given what you do know?
All right. Big shout out to you, man. That was a learning moment. Thank you, man. Thanks for the question. Those are two very good questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. Hopefully, I'll do them justice.
No problem.
All right. In as far as the situation in Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I'm going to say are my opinions. I don't really have like enough facts for me to claim that what I'm saying is truth. But those are my assumptions and just opinions and what I think. I think the people who are responsible for passing information or giving the people the information, they're not really doing their job properly. Like, it doesn't seem as if their ways or their measures are backed by anything. It's like someone just thinks of doing something and they wake up tomorrow and say, oh, this is what's happening. Or they sleep and they dream of something and they wake up and say, oh, this is what's happening. Like, it's not really clear as to why certain policies are there, why certain things are being done.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes in my opinion, I start to assume that sometimes these are like political tools.
Mm-hmm.
Because when people are approaching an election, you hear that, there's a new variant, there's this and that.
Mm-hmm.
So that people can stay in the house. Even the voting process is going to be like, it's easy to tamper with. This is my assumption. And however, on the other hand, there are people that I know who are dying. Like who are gone. I'm like, then what's the story behind this whole thing? Like, is it because it's now in people's minds? So once they are told that you're suffering from this, mentally they like, I don't understand, man. Like, it is very confusing for me, but I think like they I don't know, it just feels, I don't like to feel, but it just feels like there is an invisible hand when it comes to this whole thing. Like, like in South Africa, right? The first time they acquired the vaccines that were about to expire. And they were
about to expire.
Yeah, they didn't even use them because they were going to expire in like six months or something. I don't remember that. But people were complaining that they bought vaccines that were about to expire. They were saying, the people in government bought vaccines from their friends, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the corruption when it comes to the whole, like, what do you call PPE?
You're right.
Yeah,
right.
Like people, money is just disappearing. And it's not just South Africa. It's a lot of African countries where you don't understand like what's happening. So like, to be honest with you, I would be lying if I told you that I have facts as to what's really happening. But I'm confused. I don't know what's happening. Like in my house, my family, my mom, she had COVID twice, no symptoms. My dad had COVID and he was on his deathbed. So now you start to question, is this thing real? If it's real, how come? Like, my mom was twice. And then on the other hand, if it's not real, then what was happening with my dad? You get what I'm saying? Because now it becomes very confusing. And with the whole vaccine thing, they're saying you need to be vaccinated. And now I'm hearing rumors about, if you're not vaccinated, you can't go to certain areas. But then, if vaccines make you safe, then why are we worried about people who are not vaccinated? Like, I don't really know. Remember, I'm not a doctor. I don't understand how it works. I thought maybe the people who are going to be in danger are the people who did not take the vaccine. So if they don't take the vaccines, they're going to suffer the consequences. But it seems as if everyone is still going to be affected. And I'm also being told that people who are vaccinated can be infected again and still spread the virus. So what's the point of the vaccines? Right? So for me, it's quite confusing. And then when you ask me another question about like, what's my take on vaccines? I might sound dumb, but I don't really understand the science behind vaccines.
Okay.
But growing up, I took shots. I took vaccines. My mom, took me to the doctors, and I have all the vaccines. And with those vaccines, I could give them a benefit of the doubt because I felt like there was enough research done. It took, longer for them to. But then with this one, I don't know, man. It's the time period is too short for me.
Right.
Like there are a whole lot of other diseases that still don't have vaccines up until this day. Why was it so important for them to have this one? When HIV, there's no vaccine, but it has destroyed a lot of people. You have Ebola, you have so many other diseases. Is it because this one is affecting people with, like, it's confusing. But like I said, these are just my opinions. I don't know, but these are questions that I have, and they're still unanswered. I don't understand. And why, like, this whole people trying to convince me to take the shot? Like, what happened to me wanting what I want and what I don't, like saying no to what I don't want? You get what I'm saying? Because right now there are people who didn't take maybe other vaccines and no one is asking them anything. Maybe some people didn't take the measles vaccine before, but no one cares. But if I don't take this one, it seems as if everyone is on my ass, like, yo. But like, you are safe. You just took the fucking shot. You're fine. You get what I'm saying? So it is quite confusing, man. Like, I don't think I've had a chance to get like proper information from someone who can actually sit me down and say, okay, look, this is how it works. It's the same with most people. Like, when they're trying to communicate whatever they're trying to sell, whatever they're trying to do, they don't really explain to the people that, look, this is what's happening. These are the benefits. Because now you start to hear too many things.
Yes.
And like you were saying, the misinformation, the disinformation, it's crazy, bro. So yeah, these are just my opinions. It's not a fact.
Ironically, the existence of your opinion is a fact. But never mind. Man, I really appreciate that response because it was so telling and so honest and so revealing about the times that we're in. It sounds like you really have more questions than answers.
Definitely.
And I think that's my biggest personal issue with the state of affairs today.
Yeah.
Where if I wanted to be informed about anything, I'm left even less informed than I was when I began.
Yeah.
Or with more questions. And it's scary, especially for something you would think is very pressing, like a pandemic, and the existence of it. So I really empathize and I respect your response, and there's no judgment.
You can. This is an honest platform.
It's an honest platform, but no. Also, one thing I want to say to the listeners as well, at least for myself, you shouldn't take anything I say as gospel or as the truth or as anything. And, we are we're two guys like you.
Yeah.
Who are just voicing what many of you may be thinking or saying, or the opposite. You may think we're complete loonies. and that's okay.
Yeah, and if you have the answers, man, hit us up. Send an email, contact@andthenthebull.com. We want the answers.
Facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to be as informed as possible, and I genuinely, that's why I respect the show a lot, because it's not just about unlearning things, but then learning.
Thanks.
No, truly, yeah, it's not just about unlearning bullshit, but then deciphering that which is bullshit from which isn't, which requires actual learning.
Yeah.
You know, so, all right. If I may, I want to unpack a little bit about what you said before we close. What I heard, you see, we started off the show with information and disinformation, and then we got a little bit into knowledge and the media. But then what I heard from you was confusion, and I think the big source of that confusion was trust.
And lack of information too.
Well, yes. No, I would say perhaps there's too much information, you know, and there's so much information that you can't tell that which is disinformation from actual information. What is that a fair?
In my, you know what just happened now? You asked me a question, and then I told you that these are not facts. Like, this is what I'm seeing.
Sure.
But then you know what other people do? They'll go to social media and tweet and say, government is wrong, they're not supposed to be doing this. And they'll say, like, you know, vaccines don't work, or vaccines do this without, and they didn't even graduate high school, right? They don't have the facts to back whatever they're saying. So now it's all over the place, and people, whatever your mind is telling you, or whatever you think, like, it sounds more realistic. Should we take a short break? No, we can take a short break. All right, we'll take a short break. All right, cool. We're back. All right, cool. We're back.
I like that. I like that. We all high tech, and I like it.
Yeah, we had to take.
We gotta take a quick breather.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hear everything you're saying, and I understand that you are not. None of what you said was a fact per se, but just your opinions.
My thoughts, and because now everyone seems to be an expert.
Well, okay. So you're hitting so many nails on the head in your response, and that's the real point of why I brought this up for questioning. It's really for questioning. It's not to say that I or anyone knows anything. I genuinely don't believe anyone knows anything.
Exactly.
But with the information you had, you shared what you did. So at the top of the show, folks, we discussed information, disinformation, misinformation. We moved on to media, we moved on to knowledge, and what Oliver did was answer two questions to me, and then what I heard, maybe you heard differently, but what I heard was confusion, and my next topic, which was trust and mistrust. And here's the thing. Trust to me is a root. Trust and truth have the same root word, true. And it's a currency. It's the most valuable currency that living organisms have, especially human beings. And if you break this currency of trust, then it's really hard to repair, and it's also not easy to gain in the first place or to earn. So you find socially that trust is something that disappears when there are unexpected surprises. Or unwanted surprises. So if you tell someone, I'm going to meet you at 8:00 at the park, and you don't show up, or you show up at 8:30 with no explanation, that's kind of that may qualify as a very small example of an unexpected surprise. And this may also be the case with the COVID-19, where big doctors and epidemiologists and other professionals say one thing in 1 month, and then the next month they say something else. And so that generally would make people less trusting of the government or of science or of big institutions, and that's understandable. But then from where I sit, even though I must admit, and I'll admit it honestly, I do have less trust today in the government, in the U.S. government, and in the media than I did 4 years ago. It's not that but even though I have less trust, it's not that I have no trust. Because thankfully, I hope, I was taught to think critically. And I at least trust my brain and my thoughts enough to say, all right, well, this is likely and this is not. And if something is a question mark, then it will remain a question mark. So with regards to the COVID-19 and science and so on, I want to say this. Science itself is a self-correcting practice. So your findings scientifically in January of 2020 can be quite different from February of 2020. So, example, Dr. Fauci, Anthony Fauci, he's the American physician that's trusted for public health when it comes on to advising Americans on what to do with regards to the pandemic. My memory, somebody can correct me, but my memory says in February, he said Americans will not need to wear masks.
God damn it, yeah.
And in March, a month later, if not less, he said
Mask up.
Masks are necessary. Now, people hear that and lose trust because he said two different things about the same event. But science is self-correcting. So at that point, with the information he had, was he wrong? One could argue no in February, because with the information he had, he said no, there was no need to wear masks. That's if you trust a bunch of things before we get to this point, right? So if you're going to trust, so I have to, we're kind of skipping a lot of steps here, but so I'm saying this as an example to say science is self-correcting, as are a couple other institutions. So with the information that Dr. Fauci had, he did self-correct himself with the science that he had, or with the data that he had that was updated. And it said, in fact, masks have been found to lessen the spread of the COVID-19. So therefore, we do strongly recommend you wearing masks. But then things got very messy across the globe, across the world, across the board with this. And you brought up some good questions about the vaccination, about the existence of the COVID-19, and about being persuaded and almost being forced even to make decisions about that. And these are precisely the thoughts and the concerns that many people have, including myself. So as informed as I may be, I frankly still have more questions than answers. And also, I find that people do make decisions, because that's the next part, decisions. People do make decisions that are not fully informed, if informed at all. A lot of these decisions that they make are based on emotions and gut and visceral, I want to say groupthink, sheep-like thinking,
exactly,
as opposed to independent, critical thinking. And I can give a quick example before you chime in. I have a friend, he's in China. He's not Chinese. He's a white man from America. And he was hesitant to take the vaccine because he thought he wasn't fully informed yet to take it. And from what he had been informed about, he didn't trust the option that was available in the country that he was in China. And sure enough, he had a friend who is of South African descent, white South African person who was in England. And that's a bit confusing, folks, but just follow me.
Yeah.
So my friend in America, my American friend is in China. His South African friend is in England. And they're having a conversation about the vaccine. And the South African in England says, take the fucking vaccine.
Yeah.
you are an asshole if you don't take the vaccine. You are an idiot. You are this, you are that, because they're kids. They're people in places that would die to have your opportunity, and you're not taking it. So you're an asshole. You're a this, you're a that. Shaming him into taking it.
Yeah.
Sure enough, my friend here took it.
Mm.
You know, and I mentioned that example to say it's probably a microcosm, or it's probably just one example out of millions of examples of people being shamed into doing it.
For their choices.
Yeah, so here we have from where I started, information, media, knowledge, confusion, trust, all the way to decision-making time. And here we have a person that arrived at a decision that may not have been fully founded.
Yeah, and it's coming from someone who's not a professional.
It's coming from shame, and it's coming from someone who's not a professional. And even the professionals, frankly, have questions. So it's not, you know what I mean? So that's what I mean. At this time, it's very difficult to tell up from down, left from right, or what's what. So that's what I wanted to share before you offered it.
But don't you see that there is something at play as well? Like, I think what's accelerating this whole thing is social media. Because back in the day, news, it took time for news to travel. You know, they had the leeway to confirm certain things and wait for certain things to happen. But now you have more questions than answers. So sometimes they end up just giving information that is wrong. And sometimes the information that people have is not like the complete information, and they just run with it. You get what I'm saying? But back in the day, I know, even the whole trust, it was there because it took longer for the people could correct the message before it gets to the people. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, like, maybe what you were saying, like he said masks this time, and by the time he announced it, maybe they would have waited until they have enough information. But the thing is, people, when you go to these interviews, people will ask you questions, right? And now you have to respond on the spot. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's pressure from the public. And like I said, social media, anyone could just start a hashtag. We could start ours right now, and it would spread. Like, for people, for as long as it makes them feel comfortable, to them, they take it as if it's the truth. And they'll run with it. And it's the same thing with your friend that you were mentioning. The person who told him that he's an idiot
was informed by social media, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or because people are talking, but it's not like he really knows what's going on. I'm not saying he wasn't supposed to take the vaccine, but I'm saying it's like 50-50.
Right.
He was supposed to, at least in this case, it was supposed to be his choice. He had the right to wait until the time where he felt like, now if anything is to happen to me, I'm going to be responsible, because you cannot have responsibility without authority. Right? Because if anything was to happen to him after he took that shot, the friend in the UK was going to feel terrible, if he was. But this guy was also going to regret, like, why did I listen to him?
Right.
I didn't want to do this.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm pro, like, if you're responsible, you need to have authority. Like, if I'm going to be responsible for myself, I should have authority to say, this is what I want, or this is what I don't want. You get what I'm saying? Like, I can't give you $1 million and say, hold this money for me, right? You are responsible for
this $1 million,
for keeping this money. Don't spend it, though. I will be spending it. I spend my $1 million that I gave you, and I say, how come I don't have my money anymore? Yet you did not have the authority.
Right.
You were just responsible for making sure that this money is safe. But I was spending it. I had the authority, but I don't want to take responsibility for my stupid actions. You get what I'm saying?
Fair. Yeah.
So we can't do that. If I'm choosing to do something, it has to be my choice, because at the end of the day, this is me. I'm not saying people should stop getting the vaccine or should stop, whatever, or putting on the masks. But I would challenge the people who have I mean, the powers that be to give people the right information on time so that at least we can make informed decisions. But it's also difficult.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
you were saying, they would say something and then they change based on science. Like you were saying, science, it changes, man. It's to correct whatever is happening. So, man, it's crazy.
Yeah. I think what you just said was an excellent point regarding social media and the state of affairs.
Yeah.
And I agree with a lot of what you said. And it's very perceptive, and I think it's true that social media has added to the state of affairs today. But I would argue, this is where my bias comes in. So which one came first, the chicken or the egg? Meaning, which one came first, the mistrust for mainstream media or social media? And maybe that's not the correct question, but that's what comes to my mind, in that somehow my hashtag or your hashtag has the same weight as BBC and CNN on the screen. Somehow today, that's the case. Like literally someone who has no credentials in journalism or reporting or in a given topic has the same weight visually on the screen as these big conglomerate billion-dollar news empires. And I would humbly ask why. So my answer off the cuff, and it's very glib, would be there was some trust lost, in the quote-unquote mainstream media that led people to look elsewhere for information. And that's when people who couldn't find it became the quote-unquote sources of information. And now we have too many fucking sources of information. So, Oliver was unhappy. He said, I can't find it anywhere. I don't trust this guy. I don't trust that guy. So I'm going to go make my own. And we have 1 billion Olivers, know. So, and I'm not just calling your name to say that. I'm just saying that's what I find to be the case. So I don't know if one happened before the other, but I'm saying that to say that trust, at some level to me was damaged, and maybe incorrectly so or undeservedly so, but still. That's the case where whether science is self-correcting or not in a given example, or whether the news, I don't know, you know what I mean? So I know that social media has sped up things, and that we don't have the delay time or the
time to correct mistakes.
Yeah, we don't have that space to do that anymore. But I would humbly say it's probably because of the mistrust that was seen on the mainstream media that led people to get to this point. Now, for me, I have an issue with it, obviously, because I do still trust expertise in that. If I say it all the time, if I'm driving a car and I have a flat tire or I have a mechanical issue, I'm going to see a mechanic. I'm not going to see a doctor, a neurosurgeon, or an accountant. I'm going to see a mechanic. And if I have a brain injury, I'm going to see a neurosurgeon, and so on and so forth, So I trust expertise, and I trust experts within their field of expertise to help me. But there is a place of like an unknown in each of these fields that we're discussing, where there's some sciences that have less room for interpretation than others. So, for example, physics has no room for interpretation. E equals mc squared. Whereas biology has a bit more room for, and psychology has a bit more room for interpretation.
They
because
are like anomalies.
So bipolar disorder in this person is different than in this person. That's fuzzy. Know? Or PTSD, or how this person expresses happiness. There's a lot more room for interpretation there. So, again, I think what's very important is helping people to think critically, and what that means is a set of skills of describing, interpreting, and evaluating what you see, and then saying, all right, well, is this likely or not? So is it likely that the 5G is being injected inside of all of us so that Bill Gates can keep track of us? Probably not. But is it likely that the COVID-19 may be an added scheme by an invisible hand trying to keep us down while they pocket a lot of money or pocket a lot of power? Not terribly unreasonable, right? So, and that's where conspiracies and all that stuff come in. And I'm not trying to go there. I'm trying to say we don't know what we don't know. And that's the trick, that we don't know. So at least with regards to the COVID-19, okay, let's say it does exist. Let's say it is a virus that did warrant a vaccine, perhaps faster than other diseases out there, or viri out there. Fine. It seems like the prudent thing to do is to take the vaccine. Given my knowledge of the vaccine, I didn't answer that or address that. I can go there quickly unless you have something to say.
What I wanted to say was regarding the what started in terms of social media, and the reason why I blame social media is it kind of enhanced the whole mob mentality, because you see some of the mainstream guys in terms of news, they are now swayed by what the mob is saying on social media, and they try to push that narrative, because if they go against that, they lose revenue. So now it's more about the money. You get what I'm saying? So now they don't even ask the experts.
Yeah.
They just, what's trending today? Okay, they're going to report that.
Yep.
So you see that in terms of media, you have this media house and this media house, mainstream. They're saying two different things.
Yep.
At the same time.
Yep.
And you wonder, how did we get here?
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Because back in the day when we used to have before the rise of social media, you'd know that what you hear on this channel, it might be a little bit different, but it's pretty much, I don't know about the States.
Sure.
It was pretty much the same, and it was mostly factual stuff and, information. But now, someone could just tweet something that has not been proven. You see it on mainstream media. Like I could just tweet something now.
Yeah.
And if it trends, they're reporting about it. Like, this person was... And then later on, they find out that no, it's not even a fact. You get what I'm saying? It's like what happened in South Africa, where they were talking about the lady who gave birth to 10 babies. And it was all over, even here, I'm not going to say where I am, but even right here, I saw it in the news that, a South African woman was delivered 10 babies. Nigga, where?
You mean at the same time? What?
At the same time.
No, come on.
No, the pictures were there, the pictures of the kids. I'm like, nigga.
Yeah.
And then now they go back and say, no, it was a lie. I'm like, what the fuck? It's all over. It's there in the States. It's there in China. It's there in Russia and Europe. They're talking about it. And it's a fucking lie.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying it's social media, because...
All right. So sorry.
Because for as long as it's something interesting, did you hear that there's a lady who gave birth to 10 kids in China? Oh my goodness, what? I'm telling my friend. She's now calling other friend in another country. Did you hear that this happened? And it's all over the place. Chinese and it's not true.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying I think social media has played a big part, because of the mob mentality. People would question an expert. Like they would question and say, you are lying. It's impossible. I'm like, okay. He's lying based on what are you basing your argument?
He's got stuff to back it.
Yeah. What about you? Nah, these people, they just can't be believed, man. Like these people are full of shit. I'm like, give me facts. Don't tell me about your feelings.
Well, okay. So yes, I see why you blame social media.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be naive about this. The result is this. When it comes to the COVID-19, it's all political.
Of course.
And when it comes to the state of affairs today, we are tribal. We are tribal, and we have a lot of groupthink, which means We're not thinking for ourselves. We're thinking in a herd or in a
getting
tribe.
worse.
And yes,
It's not cool to be, different these days, man.
no. In fact, you can be shamed or cancelled or
Of
what have you for
course,
it.
yeah.
But and this just goes back to all of the conversations we've had before. But in general, yes, I agree that today the state of affairs is as a result largely
Yeah.
of the invention or the steroids that is social media.
Yeah.
But even though that's the result, I think we'll agree to disagree on the root cause, maybe, on it. Because to me, my gut or opinion says that it's based on the failure of mainstream media to earn the trust of its recipients, us, that led us to the new technology that is social media. So we were always tribal. We were always opinionated.
It's human
It's
nature.
it's just a matter. It's just that this is the most present expression of that tribalism.
Yeah,
And
we
it's
have different platforms.
It's very messy and chaotic. It seems scary, but it also seemed scary when Fox News just came out and all that stuff, at least in the States. You know what I mean? So I understand it. And believe me, I had anxiety about this just recently as a few months ago, at least before 2021. And what helps me sleep at night is to know, well, how much of this stuff really matters anyway.
Yeah.
And it's not to be, some may say, well, Albert, you may be in a place of privilege to say that, and X, Y, and Z. But no, I think in general, the world is a better place today than it was when I was born, in spite of
what's happening,
all that the news has reported.
Yeah.
Because if you do follow the news every day, it does appear as though our heads are on fire.
Yeah.
And is it? Are we on fire? I mean,
it's information overload.
It's information overload, but it's also like disinformation, or like they're trying to tailor us to. They're trying to keep our eyes and ears on them. They're trying to keep our attention. So anything it takes to keep the ratings, to keep our eyes there, like you said with social media, anything that's trending, that's what they're going to talk about, regardless of if it's true or not. And also, another result that is the case today is a blatant, not just mistrust, but disregard for empiricism, meaning that which is empirical, that which is mathematical, that which is logical, that which is scientific. There's a blatant dismissal of it. My opinion is now true.
My truth.
Right. Back to that same thing. But my truth,
your truth,
my truth or your truth supersedes
the truth.
The truth.
Yeah.
And we, and this is a very serious thing. So someone can literally have COVID-19. It could exist and they could have it, and they can say, based on my truth, I am floating on the moon. So
yep.
No, and literally anything goes. Any fucking thing. Pardon my French, but it's true. Anything goes.
Of course.
So that's the primary concern. So I want to leave this open for the audience to really think about, but I wanted to hear if you're more than welcome to send us an email or to have us, have us discuss it online in a productive and civil way. But I guess I just wanted to close with the fact that I hope we can apply critical thinking to these matters and not ignore, not be sheep-minded, but also like kind of have a balance of not necessarily engaging in group think or sheepish thinking, but at the same time not
being ignorant.
Yeah, not being ignorant and closing our minds to possible things that are true.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, not knowing is okay. And trying to make decisions based on what's best provided in front of you, I think is prudent.
Yeah.
And fair. And that's what I've tried to do, and that's what and I've learned so much from my coworkers who share different political views than I may, but I've learned from them, and we've agreed to disagree, and in that process, I have been informed. And I'm informed every time I come on this show and talk to Mr. Oliver himself. So that's really what I wanted to discuss today with you guys, and just hear, what you thought about how the COVID-19 was exasperating this issue of information. I can just say briefly, in America, the COVID-19 has been way too political. It's a virus. It's not. There's no D or R. There's no Democrat or Republican COVID-19. But apparently, it's every single thing has become political, and it's such a shame. So to me, there's way too much tribal thinking, way too much repetition of the news and the media. And it's not that I dislike the media or hate the media, but I trust it less than I did before, because all they do is report things that keep my eyeballs on it. And they are now persuading me to think things that I didn't need to be persuaded to before. Like on CNN, I used to really love watching Chris Cuomo. But up until recently, he told me, and he said, you should feel upset. You should feel offended. You should. And he's telling me how I should fucking feel. Excuse me.
Give me the facts, yeah.
No,
Why?
I watch CNN to be informed, not to be told how to feel, not to be persuaded. This is not a persuasive essay. This is me coming to CNN, cable network news, to hear what the fuck happened. Tell me what happened, and then let me decide. I'm a grown-ass person.
Yeah.
I'm quote-unquote educated, and I'm also able to think let me decide how to feel.
Based on the information that I'm getting,
Don't tell me how to feel before even informing me or disinforming me about what the fuck to feel.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm sorry, but that's
no, it's cool, man. You're entitled. We're not going to stop you from expressing how you feel, And I'm with you on that. But my thing is to, those who are listening.
Sure.
Social media hashtags, it's not real life, man. Some things are true, some things are not true. You can't just take what you see on social media because it's trending and everyone is talking about it and think that, that's the way of life. Life does not have a manual. You have to make decisions knowing that there are consequences to every decision that you make. So everything that you do, if you do it because of the mob, they are not going to be the ones who are responsible for whatever consequences that come with it. You get what I'm saying? So every decision that you make, you need to understand that, okay, I'm making this decision. I have the authority to make this decision. And I also have to be responsible for whatever comes with that decision. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. And I know it's difficult nowadays because of the shaming language, if you don't go with the mob. And some people end up depressed, man. Some people, they end up offing themselves because of the depression and stuff like that. And personally for me, I'm now at a point where I don't want to throw words like depression, anxiety, a lot. Like, I feel like if you go on social media, everyone is talking about that, anxiety, depression, this and that. I think they're now being used lightly, like people just throw those words, mental health and stuff like that. I think we are now, this generation is full of emotionally weak people, man. They, even when they have a conversation with you, they have a conversation with the intention of being right. They don't want to listen to listen. They listen to argue. So at the end of the day, group mentality, it's okay, but the information that you get from that, you have to analyze it by yourself and see if it fits whatever it is that you're trying to do. You can't be convinced by... You can't change like everything that you believe simply because the mob is saying this, without like something that's tangible that you can say, I'm changing my beliefs because this did not work for me, or this does not make sense because of this and this. You're just saying because everyone is saying this, it must be true. It doesn't work like that, in my opinion, man. Like, that's just what I think, and I stand to be corrected. Like what Albert said, we are not experts. We are open to, learning. And if you have anything that you want to contribute, or if you want us to have a conversation with you, you can email contact@unlearnthebull, or you can just visit all social media pages @unlearnthebull, and then we can take it from there.
Hey, before we close, there's one more thought that came to mind, and again, Oliver, I keep saying it, but I'm so grateful for your friendship, man.
Yeah.
And I appreciate having the show. With regards to the vaccines, I want to be very clear about, two things: the vaccines and mental health. My bias is to look at brain health versus mental health.
Yeah.
Because brain health is more tangible and mental health is less tangible. It's more fuzzy, as some may say, but it's still very real. And we want to be very careful about this, and we want to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
So at the time of the COVID-19, it's affected everybody, and it's affected all of us in different ways. And so we don't want to weaponize mental health.
Yeah.
And we don't want to use it as a crutch, but we do want to acknowledge that it's real.
Exactly. It does exist.
It does exist. And it's something that we want to be very sensitive, but also very mindful of. That it's something, it's a part of life. It's not a crutch, or it's not something that we should use to weaponize and to normalize.
Or for sympathy, because, the whole victimhood, what we spoke about the other time. People now enjoy being victims. I think being a victim means you're winning these days, in my opinion.
It is, and it's the opposite of what I learned when I was a kid.
Exactly.
But maybe I'm still a kid. I don't know. So
it's crazy.
So yeah, that's what I wanted to say quickly about mental health. You should seek a professional.
Yeah.
Who is unbiased and who has expertise.
Yeah.
If you are in despair, if you are unhappy, especially with
what's happening,
the current state of affairs, where there's so much information or disinformation that you don't know left from right or up from down.
Exactly.
Please don't hesitate.
But you know what the funny thing is?
See a professional.
You know what the funny thing is? People are complaining about mental health, and they're taking it to social media, where they're going to get opinions from different people, which is probably going to further your mental health. So is this still about mental health, or it's about attention? Because if you're really suffering from mental health, you need to go and see a therapist or a professional. Because if you put it on social media and you expect to get help, you might not get the results that you want.
No, but it sounds like what mentally unwell people would do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I hear what you're saying, but like a rational, perhaps, or a person that's not mentally well, depending on what you define that as, may not see validation on social media, whereas people who are not well just may, and that's the danger that you spoke of social media, where it makes everything so flammable and so quick that it spreads like it spreads at a fraction of the second, so yeah, it causes more harm than good. It spreads the mental health. It spreads
spreads
the mental. You know what I mean? Like it spreads the trauma or what have you. And that's why we, at least I would hope to encourage folks to see a professional.
Yeah.
Not to shame you, but to let you know, there's social media. Social media is not
going to give you all the answers.
It's not a conduit or a source of wellness.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It makes it worse, if anything.
Yeah, it's crack.
Because you don't control what other people are going to say. They will just say, you might say something that's very sensitive. They will just say, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
And then now you feel even worse. You get what I'm saying? Like I was saying, people love being victims these days, because you get rewarded for being a victim these days. You get what I'm saying? You know, we have hashtags like believe all victims, blah 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 blah, which to me is I don't even know how to explain that. I'm not going to believe someone simply because they claim to be a victim or they are a victim. I need facts. You get what I'm saying? So I think people, if you don't feel well or if you're anxious, stay away from social media. Delete social media. Go and seek help from a professional because that's what's going to help you. Social media is going to destroy you, I think. I like if you're mindful enough to know that now I'm going to type, whatever problem that I have on social media. If you can, or if you're no longer, if you're not at that stage where, the mental health is taking you to the point where you're not even thinking straight, just take a step back, man.
Yeah.
Delete everything. Don't, because once you post it, it's out there forever.
You can't unpost
it. So anything, I know this whole thing, some people lost their jobs, some people, things happen, man. A lot of things happened in the past 2 years. So it might affect people differently. But I think the best way to seek help is offline. Yeah.
Hallelujah. Well, yes, I would agree with what Oliver said largely in that, I'm aware that people express different mental health issues differently. We're humans and we have individual differences.
Yep.
And so people do use social media for different reasons. I'm one of those people that don't post often, but I end up scrolling and I just scroll aimlessly, and that's not healthy to so I think when we look at health, what we're looking at is what helps someone function and what is good for a person. And essentially at the end of the day, we are not saying social media is totally terrible, but when it comes to certain mental health issues, it's probably best to seek a professional at some point in your process. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel shamed.
Yep.
It's not a stigma, and you don't need to weaponize it and wear it as a victimhood badge.
Yeah.
It's just a part of life. If you injured your leg or you have an issue, it's the same thing, and let's address it that way. So that's number one. Number two, while we're on injuries or protecting ourselves, the vaccine is a pressing concern. So I wanted to end on that note as far as what I know or what I've been informed of on the vaccine. And nobody has to follow my advice because I am not a clinician. I'm not a professional. I'm just going as a citizen of what I know. The technology for the vaccine has not been developed for 10 months or 6 months, but for 10 years. So from 2010, as far as I know, there have been biochemists and researchers that have put together the mRNA technology across different brands of this vaccine. That includes, as far as I know, AstraZeneca and Pfizer. And so it was the culmination of 10 years of research and science and technology. And also the fact that we were in 2020 at the time, that they were able to expedite this particular technology. They were able to translate that or put it into the form of a vaccine. They were able to do tests and so on and really put it into a very effective vaccine, over 80%, 90% in some cases. So the stigma or the common thread of thought that's out there is that, well, it's 6 months old, it's a year old, I don't trust it. Very reasonable. But at least if we're talking about the three main ones, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and AstraZeneca, as far as I know, and as far as information is out there to suggest, these technologies have been out for years. That's number one. Number two, when it comes to variants and so on, or side effects, these are still things that are not fully determined. Also, in America, the FDA, only just recently, I think about 2 to 3 weeks ago, as of the date that this is being recorded, approved fully of all the vaccines instead of having them on like an emergency hold or an emergency status. So this is very important when factoring it in. And understandably, people have questions. I have found it to be the case that people of color appear to have more questions than others. And that's interesting to me, especially with where we are at or where I am at. So I wanted to say that in that I am not anti-vax or nor am I anti-science, but I'm a man like Oliver who has questions and I would like to be informed, and I miss the days when I could look at the clock and tell the time and there was no left and right about it.
Yeah.
You know, I miss I miss the days when the news was as boring and as simple as looking at the clock.
Yeah.
You know, it's 7:00. The news is 7:01 and that's it. But here we are, and fine. We evolve. I get it.
Yeah.
But I hope we can be critical thinkers as we move forward. So those are my closing remarks. It's been such a sincere pleasure being here with you guys tonight. And thanks for having me, Mr. Oliver.
Oh, thank you for
You're
having
the real
me.
general, the dandada.
I should be thanking you for having me. You know, this was a very deep conversation.
We've never not had one.
Yeah, this one was very, very deep. And I'm glad that, we didn't really come up with conclusions as to what's going on, because we don't know. We also have questions. So if you're out there and you have answers, man, hit us up.
If we have answers too, we'll probably make another one for you.
Yeah, follow up episode, man. Like, yeah.
There you go.
But I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you for your home.
Nah.
And setting up my studio here.
Mi casa, su casa, mi amigo.
And for, drinks as usual, man. So thank you so much. So, any last words?
That's it, guys. I really appreciate you for having me. And I'm sorry that...
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry that my squeaky voice isn't as sexy as Oliver, but thanks, man.
There you go again, man. Come on now. All right, cool. Thank you so much, man. We appreciate you. And I think... No, let me not promise. But I think from here going forward, we're going to be a bit more consistent. We'll try and do it at least once every week. I'll try and have an episode on whatever is going on, man. If you have any topics that you want us to discuss, send me an email. We talk about everything and anything surrounding our societies, culture, just social stuff, even politics. But yeah, we're not really politicians, but yeah, we'll obviously give our opinions. If we have facts, we'll back it up with facts. So yeah, enjoy. See you on the next one.